on? Okay.
You're live now. Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the late start. We had a few technical glitches and people lost looking for the Santa Monica Library. It started out being at another library, and we moved it here. So anyway, my name is Cindy Dumas, and I am the Executive Director of the Women's Coalition. It's a grassroots organization that's dedicated to getting women the power they need to be able to keep custody of and to protect their children. So I want to extend a big welcome out to everybody here who made it in person. And I know there's a lot of people who would have rather gone to the beach today and see this later on their computer, or maybe just stay home in their pajamas or whatever. So, but anyway, thanks to Google Hangouts on Air technology, we are streaming live on the Women's Coalition website. And we have women from all over the world joining us today. We have women from Australia, from Canada, from a lot of countries in Europe. Well, the ones farther east, they're probably asleep by now. But those women who are really into this and stayed up late, we thank you for joining us. And also even Africa, we have some women in South Africa who are experiencing this problem. So we have women from all over the world, and we are finally coming together to do this very important thing, and that is to organize to get our right to our children. Okay, I'm going to put on the screen here, get something up. So Damon is my technical advisor here, and he's going to help me with the screen. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you. I know it's hard for you to be here and relive the trauma that you have gone through, and I'm hoping that what we can do with the Women's Coalition is get enough people together and tap into outrage instead of sadness and depression at what happened, that we tap into the outrage that comes from having your children taken away. And many of us have had our children given to abusers as well. So, so how many of you here today have lost custody of your children at one point or another? No. Okay. How many of you were deemed alienators, mentally ill, emotionally abusive because you kept trying to protect your child? Yeah, so there's a lot of you, and I'm sure there's a lot of our virtual viewers that the same thing happened to them. So were you all shocked when this happened? Yes. Yeah, I was shocked to my core. I mean, I couldn't believe what was happening. I mean, here we are in the third millennium, and you know, I'm being called a liar, and they have all the evidence of abuse in front of them, and they don't care. And, you know, and then switching custody to a father who never was involved, first of all, in parenting, never much involved, and then also was accused of abuse. So I was totally shocked to my core, didn't know what was going on. But actually, you know what? We shouldn't have been shocked. I shouldn't have been shocked. You shouldn't have been shocked. I mean, really, we should have been shocked if it didn't happen. We should have expected this to happen. We should have expected the father to be able to take away the children from us if he wanted to. And why is that? Because it's been going on for 10,000 years. And we have not yet fought for that right to our children. This is a right that we have not fought for yet. We got the vote, that's great. And we got financial independence, which allowed us to live independently of men, especially if a relationship didn't work out or they were abusive, we could leave. But what happened when we left? We found out we were not free at all, didn't we? We were subjugated to them in a different kind of way through our children. because they could continue to control us. They could continue to harm us and our children by using custody of the children and by taking the children away. So really, we shouldn't have been shocked. We should expect it. And so for 10,000 years. So I have this vision of 10,000 years ago. You've got these men sitting around a campfire while the women are up in the cave putting the kids to sleep and doing all their maternal things, and the guys are sitting around the campfire, and they say, you know, they're just complaining about how their women aren't doing what they want them to do and all that. So one of them pipes up and says, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we do what we do in our big game hunting? Why don't we all get together and be powerful as a unit? And that seems to be exactly what happened, is that men got together, and that's when the Old Boy Network started. That's when patriarchy began, and that is really the very cradle of sexual politics. And this is where our problems started, believe it or not. Most women don't understand that for 10,000 years we've never had the power to keep our kids. We have been bamboozled by the power elite into thinking women have the advantage to custody, right? Didn't you all think that? Yeah. I went into court thinking, piece of cake. I've been the primary caretaker. He's never been much involved. He's, you know, later he was accused of abuse by my son. I thought, no problem, right? Well, it was a problem. So the men have gotten together, and there are systems which continue to enable them and continue to empower them in the family over women and over children. So the other thing that I was shocked about, and you probably were too, is that nobody told me this was going on. I mean, how can I walk in there and not know this is happening? Where are the women who should have told me this was going on? Where were the women's organizations who should have told me this was going on? I felt betrayed by women as a group, because as I found out, there were hundreds and then thousands and then hundreds of thousands I'm finding out this is happening to. So why didn't anybody tell us? And I became very angry. I became very angry at the women's organizations and the commissions who it is their job to tell us this is what's going on. As some of you here know, because you've been to the women's commissions with me, there are government commissions on the status of women in just about every state in the United States, and I think around the world, because it's a UN thing. It's called the Commission on the Status of Women. And they have refused to help us, and that is their job. They are supposed to identify forms of discrimination and educate women and warn women and try to help stop them. And yet we've been refused. We're not giving up. We're gonna keep pounding the pavement and trying to get them to help us. But it just goes to show that it appears that the power elite has infiltrated even the organizations for women that are supposed to help us on this one issue. This issue is their baby. They want control in the family. And so they've been really smart ever since the 70s when we got independence. They have gotten some covert and some overt means of continuing their control. And to the point that there's so much propaganda out there, and women believe it. We believe that we were the ones that were advantaged to have custody. Who's heard of the tender years doctrine? Okay, that's one of the big ones they use to make women think, oh, for 100 years, women have had the advantage to custody at least until the child's about 7, right? But actually, that's not true. Phyllis Chesler is a feminist from way back, and she wrote a book about this. And she talked about how the tender years doctrine was just another way to benefit men. Because who wants to do all that hard work when the kids are from 0 to 7, right? And what little benefit do men get from children that young? They only start benefiting as they get older. So that actually benefited them. And what you're never told is that even though there's a presumption that they should get the children. It doesn't matter. If they want the children, they still get them. How many of you know as domestic violence victims, there's a presumption against joint custody, right? How many? Yeah, a few of you right here, yeah. It doesn't matter about the presumption. They just, what do? They override it. They ignore it. So a presumption doesn't mean anything. So anyway, it turns out, and the point I'm trying to make about all this is that we never have had the power. And nobody has organized yet to get the power, which is another thing that shocks me. Why are we at the Women's Coalition the first one to identify this, to recognize this as a crisis, and to try to organize to fight it, to stop the entitlement that is causing the loss of so many children from mothers? And so that's what we're doing here today. That's what the Women's Coalition is mostly about, identifying this male entitlement. Oh, I wanted to show you Phyllis's book, as long as we were talking about her. This is one of the books that I recommend that you read. It's called Mothers on Trial, and the Battle for Children in Custody. And so you don't have to believe me when I tell you it's been 10,000 years. You can read, she's a doctor, she's a feminist, and she's been looking into this. She is an expert on this. So this is the proof that it's been 10,000 years that we have not had the power over our children, and we need to take it back. And just picture before patriarchy started too. I got you envisioning the guys sitting around the campfire and the women in the cave. Well, why at that point did the women have the power to protect their children and to keep them with them? Because they were all together. Isn't that right? They were together. It was only when women got isolated off into nuclear, well, I don't know only when, I know that part of the problem is when women got isolated off into nuclear families and possibly even before that. But the women were together and so that's what we need to do. The men got together to get power over us. Now we need to get together to get our power back. That's the only way we're going to get it back, is by joining together and being really focused on the cause of this happening. There's a lot of groups out there. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But the Women's Coalition is starting because there's nobody that is laser focused on the cause of this. The cause being male entitlement and the discrimination against women that results from that male entitlement. So this is going back to really what it is the cradle of sexual politics. And we are reviving we're not starting a battle, really. We're doing a counterattack because they're already full force battling us. Of course, like I said, they're doing it covertly, so there's not this big battle. But anyway, they are the ones that are taking our children away. And so we need to launch a counterattack. And in order to launch that counterattack, we have to be united. And like I said, this is the cradle of sexual politics. So I have my other book out here that I want everybody to read who's going to be members of the Women's Coalition. This is called Rocking the Cradle of Sexual Politics, and it is by Louise Armstrong. And she actually was an incest victim herself, and she wrote it from the point of view of an incest victim who later became an advocate for protective mothers. But it's not just about abused children. You can extrapolate from this book out to any woman who loses custody of her child, has her child taken away from her, whether there is abuse or not. She goes into it very well. She is an expert on this. She's a wonderful person. Unfortunately, she passed away the year that I came back from hiding. I wanted so badly to meet her, but and she lived right here in Southern California, I believe. But anyway, this is a really, really good book, and it's well written, and it really helps make it clear what's going on, all the games that are being played in the court with the guardian ad litems and the evaluators and, you know, all the stuff that goes on in court. She just makes it crystal clear how it's all just diverting and distracting from what is really going on. And what is really going on is men are still being entitled. you know, they have never stopped being entitled. So anyway, those are the books. Let's see, I was going to actually have a better picture on there for everybody. But I think Damon's going to have to do it because I can't figure out how to get back there. Oh yes, here we are. I'm still figuring out this technology, so. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get a little better pictures up here. Here's one of my favorite. These are all women here who have been jailed or threatened with jail for when they try to keep custody of their kids or protect them. Actually, most of these are protective mothers, meaning that their children were being abused and they're fighting like crazy to keep their children, and then they are jailed for one reason or another, or they're threatened with jail. So, and then, of course, the saying by Martin Luther King, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor, it must be demanded by the oppressed. That's really an important concept for us today, because we are never going to get the power we need unless we demand it. They're not going to give up their favorite patriarchal perk. Believe me, they are not going to do it. They're going to fight like crazy. In fact, they will probably make us look ridiculous. They'll put us down, they'll discredit us, they'll make fun of us, they'll do whatever they can to get people to be the problem. But it doesn't matter, because we know it is, and we're strong, and we have thousands of women from all over the world. And so we are going to fight for it. And this is the other saying along that line. One of my favorite abolitionists, Frederick Douglass, he said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. So our movement shares a lot of similarities with the Black civil rights movement. And they fought very hard, and they got equality in the 1800s, but they never really got it realized until the mid-1900s, when Martin Luther King organized a civil rights movement and demanded the power, demanded the implementation of what was given to them on paper. So what I'm hoping for us is we're not going to have 100 years in between when we get our right recognized and then when we get it implemented. Thanks to modern technology and thanks to everybody being educated, I think we can move a little bit faster than that, hopefully, because there's a lot of women and children suffering. So, and one more thing before I move on. I said this in the beginning, I just want to say it one more time. We want to tap into the outrage, okay? We need that outrage to get the energy to fight this and to do as much as we can. That outrage has been fueling me for 13 years now, and it's still fueling me. I wake up every day and I say, I'm still outraged at what happened to me and what's happening to women on a daily basis. I have women emailing me every single day or trying to contact me in some way on the phone or by Facebook, PMing me a lot. There are so many women this is happening to. It's just mind-boggling how many people this is happening to. And so we have to get some collective outrage going so that we have the energy to fight this. Okay, so that was just my little introduction to the Women's Coalition. I hope everybody got handouts. They're all along the back, and there's some folders you can put them in. And we're also going to, for the people viewing it online, we are going to put the handouts online too. And I'm going to go over some of them if we have a little more time a little bit later. But right now, what I want to do is introduce our board members, the Women's Coalition board members. I think I'm going to start with Jenny. Jenny is a protective mother. She has a master's degree in educational psychology, and she's fought really, really hard to keep and protect her children. I believe she spent well over $500,000 on it. She now has joint custody, and I'll let her say a few words if she wants. You want to come up and say a few words? Okay.
Thank you, Cindy. My name is Jenny Donaldson, and as a young woman, I fell in love, got married, had children, and things began to sour. And eventually, I split up from my husband. I'm one of the few people probably that you may meet that has a lifetime domestic violence restraining order. This order protects me for a lifetime. They normally are given for 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. It's very, very rare to have a lifetime domestic violence restraining order. However, worse than that, my ex-husband hit our daughter in the stomach, our oldest daughter in the stomach, so hard that it caused bleeding. And Child Protective Services did step in to protect her, but would not protect my younger children. They told me just because he hit her didn't mean that he would hit them. As time has gone on, the custody of the younger 2 children for him has increased, and now we have 50-50 custody despite the laws that the legislature has enacted to make sure that such a thing wouldn't happen. So rather than going more into the particulars of my case, let me just say that the one thing that I have learned is it doesn't matter what the situation is. If you are a woman or a mother and you want to protect your kids, or simply want to make sure that your kids are well cared for, you're at a disadvantage when you go to family court. And in fact, there have been a number of secret hearings that I was never notified of where decisions were made. And so I had no due process rights because of my gender. And so I became involved in this movement to protect my daughters and to protect my friends' children and their children. And it's time for us to get together to make the change so that women will not be stripped of our innate and I believe God-given talent, desire, and love that we have for our children, to see them be successful and for them to grow up in a good, loving environment. And so I appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself and ask you to tap into that outrage so that these thousands of women and children in the United States and in other places throughout the world will not go to bed tonight heartbroken because of the decisions that an ineffective and irretrievably broken system have foisted upon them.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you for helping us out by being secretary. I don't know if I said that. She's acting as our secretary. And our treasurer is Kathy. And Kathy was a stay-at-home mom to 4 children. She was the ultimate stay-at-home mom. 4 children that she did PTA, went on field trips. She was there every day. She'd do all those, those art projects that you do. She's great at all of those. She was just involved with her kids so much. And they took all 4 away from her, placed her on occasional supervised visitation. For the rest of their childhood, she never got them back. But my favorite of her stories is how she used to try to see her kids. She used to do the craziest things just to be able to catch a glimpse of them. And I did the same thing. I was doing all kinds of things to see my kids when they were taken away too. But Kathy's got some really great stories. She was up in a tree. She would climb up a tree and look across the yard to her kids playing in a yard. And then one time she dressed up as a maintenance worker at the school, like a big fat man maintenance worker, and sweeping around, and just so she could get a glimpse of her kids. So she went to great lengths to see them. She never gave up on them the whole time. They're aged out now, but I'm just so proud that she's my friend and that she has stood by my side through my whole case, came to every hearing, and she's been just awesome. She's also very good at research and and all kinds of other things. So welcome, Kathy. Do you want to say anything?
I'll say something.
Okay.
Not one very much for public speaking, but I want to say a few words. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to thank everyone who is at all in any way participating and helping out, because I've heard a lot of people say in this, the power elite, that we just don't have the power, or we won't have the energy or whatever, but we do have the power, and we have a lot of, we're not a minority as some other groups are. We have a majority in a lot of places, and we do have a lot of power, particularly if we do unite. I want to thank Cindy Dumas for all she's done and the energy she's put in. I don't know if she remembers, but way back I was calling her our fearless leader. Way back, and encouraging her to do this full time. So I saw that the gifts in her from way back as being a really excellent leader. And I want to encourage everybody to participate, to be active, and because I think that the Women's Coalition is a fabulous idea. It's been a long time coming. We all know the horrible feelings when things are happening and our children are being removed. And I think that everyone remembers that, and I agree, channel all that energy into uniting as one force. And I think that Cindy's a wonderful leader, and I'm hoping everybody will participate and get involved, because I think that we can get something done. So that's my point. Basically, we just all need to get together and work hard, and I think that we will be successful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Kathy, and she's our treasurer. Now, the next board member that I want to introduce is Donna Coogie. She's acting as our vice chair, and she is another mom who fights really, really hard and has fought. She has a degree in mechanical engineering, and she's currently homeschooling her daughter, and she's caring for an elderly father with Alzheimer's. And Donna is really good at outreach, so we're hoping that she's going to do some outreaching for the Women's Coalition. Donna, do you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Donna Coogan. I just want to say that I'm very proud to be able to be a part of this organization. All of the women that are working on this board are very determined and passionate about exposing what's happening in courts to women and children worldwide. I think together, united, we're going to be able to make the changes that we need to make in the family courts in this country, as well as all over the world. And none of us are ever going to stop trying to expose what's happening. It's a huge human rights violation, and I, for one, am never going to be silent until I see that the changes that need to be made are made.
Thank you, Donna. And we do have Pat Berry as our Director of Legal Affairs, and she had a case that she had to do something urgent about today, but she's going to be speaking at 4 o'clock. That's on this little after. So you don't want to miss that. Stick around for that. She is really a civil rights attorney that's been doing great things. She was the first, she won the first sexual harassment case back in the 80s, when sexual harassment, it was never even known or talked about before. But she went in front of the United States Supreme Court and won it, and that sort of put sexual harassment on the map. So she's great, and she's been helping protective mothers for a long time. So I'm hoping that she gets here by 4 o'clock. And last but not least, for sure, is our Director of Communications, my very own son, Damon Dumas, and his fame precedes him. I don't really need to even hardly introduce him. Most people know Damon's story. He's been speaking out since he was about 12 years old, as has been documented in the media. So I just want to say how amazed and how proud I am of him for not only surviving what he survived, the abuse and being taken away from his mother, but turning that into energy to help stop this from happening to other mothers and children. Right now, Damon is a gifted fiction writer at UCLA. He's studying English, creative writing, and theater, and he is thriving. We're happy to say, and we're happy to have him as a board member. And not only communications, but technology too. He's responsible for helping us with all the technology. So let's have a big hand for Damon.
Hello. This microphone's a little low, and I don't feel like standing behind this podium, so I'm going to speak out here anyway. All right. As she just said, my name's Damon. I'm the Director of Communications for the Women's Coalition. I'm going to be working a lot with media outreach, and I'm going to be doing that sort of. I'm just going to turn this on. That's okay. Yes, turn on. All right. On today, I wanted to talk a little bit about truth, because truth is something that can be tricky to put down, but is the foundation of all of the work we do at the Women's Coalition. I believe that truth and purity of the truth is our #1 focus at the Women's Coalition. Our focus is not on pragmatism. Our focus is not on drawing alliances with half-truths and with well-intentioned lies. Our focus is on understanding what it is that is true, following through with it, and using that truth to bring about the change that we want. And the truth is difficult. If the truth were easy, none of us would be here, because none of us would have been traumatized and destroyed by the system that keeps us down and the system that ruins lives. The truth is that this is not something that is contained inside this library or contained on a live stream or any of that. It permeates the walls. It affects so many more people than we can reach out to and that we have reached out to. But the truth is also our greatest asset, I think, because the truth is absurd. The truth is absurd. When you walk into the idea that the justice system of the United States of America systematically covers up child abuse, and even when there isn't child abuse, systemically discriminates against women and against mothers, people are shocked. When I tell this to people, they can hardly believe it. But it's true. And we can prove that it's true. We have the evidence that it is true. And what sells that is that absurdity is our ally. Absurdity is something where that's where outrage comes from. People don't get outraged at things that they have accepted, things that make sense. That's not what people get mad about. People get mad about things that aren't fair. They get mad about things that seem insane. And that's us. That's us. We seem completely outside the bounds of normal society, of the ways that people have been conditioned to believe that our government works for the people, by the people, and of the people. But that's why we have the outrage. That's why underneath everything that we do lies the unfairness and the fight and the drive that comes from that absurdity. And I don't know how long I'm supposed to be talking for. I'm just sort of gonna
Keep going. You're
Okay.
fine. As much as you have to say it.
Yeah, and I think that the truth is something that can be looked at in multiple ways. But the thing about the truth is that no matter what you believe, it still exists. When you close your eyes, it doesn't disappear. If you close your eyes, a belief can disappear, but when you close your eyes, the truth is still always there for you. Even if other people say that something is a lie, if it is the truth, it will still be the truth. Even if everyone in the world tells you that what you are doing is wrong and that you are wrong, the truth will always be behind you. And that's something that we're focusing on a lot in this organization. It's something that is one of our guiding principles. The idea that no matter what people say, no matter how much of an uphill struggle it will be, because it will be an uphill struggle, we are taking on a system that is gargantuan, that dwarfs individuals and that crushes wills beneath its feet. But no matter how overwhelming the truth can be, when you close your eyes, it's always still there. I don't really have a whole lot of other topics to go over, so I think I'm just going to see this back.
Can I speak a little bit?
Oh, of course. Yeah, okay. Wait 1 second. Do you want to talk at all? Never mind. But, yeah.
Okay, thanks to Damon. He's a great part of the Women's Coalition. It's nice to have a man on the coalition, isn't it? And we welcome all men who want to help end male entitlement, because the good men don't care about being entitled. They care about being equal in a family. And so we welcome those two. And now we have Helen wants to speak. Come on up. Helen has been involved in this movement pretty much ever since I have been, I think. We got involved at the same time when I came back from hiding. Helen is not a protective mother, though. She's a protective grandmother. Her daughter went through this hell that all of us have gone through. Her daughter really is one of the worst cases I think I've ever heard, and I've heard of thousands, really. But her daughter was imprisoned for a long time and not treated real well in prison, and just a horrific story and not even to mention what the kids went through that she was trying to protect the kids from. And I am just so amazed at Helen. She is always there for all of our meetings, all of our activism, and she helps out a lot. She's just an amazing person and mother and grandmother. This is Helen.
I kind of wanted to pick up on the gigantic that Damon was talking about. I'm not going to talk about my case. And, you know, we're all outrageously angry at what's going on. where do we point that anger that's gonna actually get the results we want? We have to face some truths. The AFCC, I forget what that stands for, Affiliation of Family and Conciliation Courts. The AAML works with them and they have conferences every month across the nation. That's the American Association of Matrimonial Lawyers. They're all big time into abuse. Abuse, like for instance, if you have an abuse case, you will be labeled as a parental alienator. And so parental alienation has nothing whatsoever to do with alienating behavior and everything to do with abuse. So if you have been battered or if your child has been sexually abused, then you go into divorce court, you're going to lose custody. The mother will be court ordered no contact or supervised visits. And the father will be given, the abusive father will be given sole custody. Also, the United States Department of Justice investigated. They are on our side, the Department of Justice. They investigated and found that the minors' attorneys and custody evaluators recommend and the nation's judges award custody to abusive fathers. So they have found that in a 2-year-long investigation. So that's been established. And so it isn't like fathers' rights say parental alienation is abuse. That's not true. It's abuse is parental alienation. And the mother will be labeled an alienator. And here's some other gigantic things. President Obama, his federal partners with fatherhood.gov from the United States Department of Health and Human Services. That's one organization. Fatherhood.gov, and here's another one. Access and visitation. When you read the policies for access and visitation policies, it's mandated that fathers sexually abusing their children has to be overlooked, and it's mandated that fathers get custody. And then there's another organization, I forget, it's fatherhood.gov, access and visitation, and I forget the other one.
There's a few.
Yes,
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right.
That's very important.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Helen brings up some good points, that there are government organizations who are going along with that, and that shouldn't be too surprising with our theory of this is male entitlement, right? And it's a no-voice system, and the AFCC and some of the other organizations that she's talking about all have roots in these things. However, we at the Women's Coalition, we're trying not to get, Damon, can you come and get me back in? We're trying to stay focused on the core cause, because what ends up happening in the world of women on Facebook and everywhere is that are dealing with this issue, we're getting scattered. Some people think that if we get rid of the AFCC, our problems will go away.
I'm wondering if we should go down exactly the same road. Get President Hillary Clinton for motherhood.gov.
Well,
You know, instead of fighting, go to a solution mode.
okay,
There
well,
is someone who actually started it.
Although she's not really a woman's rights person.
okay, so the problem with that, and I'm gonna go over this now on our position statement. Okay, I made up this position statement to help clarify why it's not going to help for us to get rid of fatherhood funding, to start motherhood funding, or any of the other, or many of the other ideas that have come up. And so I'm going to start by just saying what the coalition is, and then I'm going to go over what it isn't and what those things are involved with. Okay, so the coalition is for the right to keep primary custody of and to protect our children. It's against the male entitlement that's causing women to lose their children. It's against the discrimination which is resulting from systemic empowering of men. And it's against attempting to reform family court. Okay, that's an important one I'll go into more down farther. And we are for creating a new system designed to stop the entitlement of men and the discrimination against and oppression of women. So we believe that because this crisis is caused by male entitlement, that it's not going to help to fight any of these, what I term symptoms of the crisis. Similar to if you're sick and you have a kidney infection and you go to the doctor and you have high blood pressure and you have sweats and inflammation, and so he gives you the blood pressure medication and the anti-inflammatories and all this other stuff to fight the symptoms. But he says, make sure and take your antibiotic because that's going to be the thing that kills the bacteria that's making you sick. So what we have here is we have a bunch of symptoms. Everybody's fighting the symptoms and nobody's fighting the cause. And that's why for 40 years, nothing has changed because the cause hasn't been recognized and hasn't been fought. We've been fighting all of the symptoms. And so some of those symptoms are, and what I said here is the coalition is not fundamentally about, and that fundamentally is important. Because of course, our issue is about all of these things. All of these things are involved in all of our cases, but it's not fundamentally about these things. These are symptoms, or you could look at it as cause and consequence. These are consequences of men being entitled and empowered to take our children and to abuse them. We have family court corruption. Family court corruption is not gender neutral. And we have the statistics, research to show that. We also have the thousands of case studies to show that. So you have a lot of organizations out there that are trying to say, family courts are broken, we need to fix family courts. And the men's rights groups are getting real clever about this, and they're coming in and saying, oh, you know, family courts are broken, we hate family courts too. But the men's groups are trying to get rid of family courts and get mandatory equal custody and mandatory mediation, which is very bad for women and children, especially abused women and children. So we have to be very careful about joining any sort of family court reform groups. They're just full of men's rights activists, and they're trying to bamboozle women into thinking that that's the problem. Family courts are just corrupt, you know? So along those same lines, passing new laws or policies within the family court are going to do nothing, zilch. And I'll give you a really good example of that. In my case, there was sexual abuse, and there is one California law that tells the family court judge what he has to do in order to do a good evaluation investigation of it. And it was, I think it was Richard Ducote, wasn't it Richard Ducote who got that law passed, I think? Anyway, it's a pretty good law. I mean, I don't think it would have really helped that much in the end because judges can do whatever they want, but not one judge in my case would do that. And I had Richard Ducote actually write me a declaration saying the judge had no jurisdiction because he didn't follow the law. And of course that's true, but did it do anything? No, it did zero. They can do whatever they want. So no matter what laws, no matter what policies we do, we say we want the kids to be the priority, their safety to be the priority. Doesn't matter because judges can do whatever they want in family court. The system is designed that way. And the same thing for all of these, really. The GALs or evaluators, they're not biased in, they're not generally corrupt. They're corrupt in one way. They sell us out. I don't know about you, I had tons of GALs, minors counselors, I mean, evaluators. How many evaluators do we have? And they just all spin it. They spin the case against the mother and against the child, against all the evidence, against all the facts. So it's not going to help to get rid of them either, because then the judge just does what he wants anyway, right, without the GALs. Now, with the GALs and the evaluators, they have something to hang their hat on. They say, oh, well, the evaluator said mom's alienating, so I'm taking custody away from her. Okay, that's why they're there, really. That's the only reason they're there, is to give the judge something to hang their hat on. But if they're not there, like in the first cases, the first case that was recorded that we know of was in 1976. And it was a woman who was trying to protect her daughter from sexual abuse. And there were no GALs, there were no evaluators, there was no system in place yet, because it was just starting to happen, because women were just getting the power to leave men who were abusive. And there was nothing. And the judge himself just said, I don't believe you, I believe you're lying, and you're ruining the relationship with the father, and whatever else. She ended up going into hiding, and she died in hiding, actually. And we don't even know what happened to her child. But that was the first case, and you can actually see the whole story in Louise Armstrong's book, Rocking the Cradle of Sexual Politics. She goes over that story and a few other ones. It's not about child abuse. How many of you hear every day, judges give kids to abusers? If you're in the network of protected moms, I hear that every day. And it's not true. Judges don't give kids to abusers. They don't love the fact that they're giving a kid to be abused. What they're doing is they're giving kids to fathers. And the fathers just happen to be abusive in a lot of the cases. A lot of the cases, they're not abusive, too. A lot of cases, the men just want to get out of child support, or torture the mom, or get revenge, or whatever. So this issue is not about child abuse. It's not about domestic violence. It's not about battered mothers. Those are all encompassed within the larger picture of males being entitled to do whatever they want. If they want to abuse the kids, they can. But it's not the cause. And so I have a problem with the protective parents movement, because it shows that it gives the idea that men are having a hard time protecting their kids from violent and sexually abusive mothers, and that is not the case at all. It's extremely rare that a good, loving father is going to have custody taken away from him and given to a violent or sexually abusive mother, or even if the mother is trying to get out of child support or whatever the reason. This is a phenomenon that is gendered. It is a gendered phenomenon, and to act like we're protected parents is really getting diverted from the focus. It's not a parents' rights issue, a children's rights issue, victims' rights. Ending fatherhood funding isn't going to help. All the money, a lot of people, this is another thing I hear every day on Facebook, is it's all about the money. Everybody's making lots of money from this, right? And that just, what does that do? It takes your eye off the ball, right? All of a sudden you're thinking, wow, this is all about profits. Well, that's not the case at all. Guess who's profiting? Yeah, that's right. The people who are profiting are the ones who are giving men custody, the ones who are distorting and spinning the case to make the father look like he's wonderful and the mom to look like she's this vindictive, malicious liar who wants to destroy her ex by coming up with these allegations of abuse. And, that there's nothing farther from the truth. Did anybody see the 2020 episode? No? Okay. You saw it? That was a really good example of spin. They spun that just like, I felt like I was in court, didn't you? It's like they were doing the same things they do to us in court. They're like burying all the evidence of the violence by the the ex and, making the mom look like she's this vindictive, malicious, lying person. And it was horrible. And they had all the evidence of abuse in both Sandra's case and in our case. They didn't portray it that way. Anyway, I'm getting diverted myself and distracted. Let's see. Okay, so if there's people who say, we need judges, we need immunity for judges. That's not going to happen because judges would spend more time in court defending themselves against lawsuits than in court doing their job. So you're never going to get judicial immunity. So that's not going to happen. A lot of people say training, we need to train the officials, we need to train the judges. They don't understand domestic violence. They don't understand child abuse. What a joke. You can be in high school. You can be a high school graduate and understand it's not good to have a person who's abusing the child be in complete custody and control of. So that whole movement to, train people is just a joke. Some people are talking about RICO violations and the fact that the court is a criminal enterprise. Well, guess what? It is, but it's not going to help to fight that because it's inside it. There's no way to get around that except to get out of it, except to just have a whole new system. A lot of people talk about the sociopathy and narcissism and other psychological disorders involved with our exes and the judges and the GALs. Well, that's another diversion, sure. A lot of them do have sociopathy, narcissism, but if we focus on that, then we're taking our eye off the ball again. It's not about mental illness. It's not about, in fact, psychologists should not be involved in our cases at all, is my opinion. Unless you have already, when you come into court, a diagnosed disorder, they should not be appointed. They should have nothing to do with our cases. We just need facts and evidence and who has been the primary caregiving parent. That's what's important. Once you get these evaluators in there, they just come up with all these either diagnoses or semi-diagnoses. Oh, she's lying. She's enmeshed with her child. Did any of you get that one? Yes, of course. Oh, she's too enmeshed. Oh, there's all these